days after the Eagles' season-ending playoff loss to the Saints, Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson met with the media this afternoon over at the NovaCare Complex. You will hear from both the Eagles head coach and the executive vice president of football operations throughout the course of this next half hour. And on that note, we welcome you to this Tuesday edition of Quick Slants. It is presented by Nissan. I'm Derek Gunn.
And I'm Barrett Brooks. And with the Eagles offseason underway, Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson have a number of important decisions to make after this point on, man.
All right, now, the most important of those decisions is who will be the starting quarterback next season. Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. Doug Peterson was asked that question during today's press conference.
Yes, Carson is the quarterback going forward. And in Nick's case, listen, we'd love to have everybody back throughout the roster. But as I've said many, many times, you know, it's not about one guy. You know, it's about the team, and we're going to do what's best for the team.
We would love to keep Nick Foles. I mean, you talk about a guy who we drafted here and we've grown incredibly close with. I mean, I don't know a team that wouldn't want to have Nick Foles on their roster. So certainly as we go into the substance of those discussions, we haven't had them yet, but there's no question we love having Nick Foles as an Eagle in Philadelphia, and we'd love to keep him.
All right, check out the numbers. Nick Foles and Carson Wentz's career numbers with the Birds, including the postseason for Foles. And these numbers are nearly identical. Barrett, the Eagles are committed to moving forward with Wentz. All signs pointing to Nick Foles leaving town soon. Is it the right decision?
Yes, it's the right decision. Carson Wentz is the franchise quarterback. There was never a question in my mind. It shouldn't have been a question in anybody else's mind. Carson Wentz is the future of this franchise, no matter if Nick Foles went out and won a Super Bowl this year. I mean, you look at it, who has a higher ceiling at this point? You have to say Carson Wentz. He's a better athlete. But I'm not even going to go into comparing the two. Let's just start off by saying this. He has a high football acumen. He understands how to play this game. I'm sure he learned a lot from what he saw from Nick Foles this year. He understands which direction he needs to go. And there's some high expectations that we put him on in anyways. But Carson Wentz is the future. He just has to be the future because they went up to get him. Plus, he's that good. I mean, we forget how good he was those first 13 games going into last year. What he architected in those games. And then this year coming back, although it was a little too early, but what he was able to do with this offense when they weren't playing at their best. He is a good quarterback, a very good quarterback, and he has a very, very high future, a high ceiling, and he's going to do a lot for this franchise as they go forward. We shouldn't have thought that he was in any way that he wasn't going to be the quarterback of the future. He is and will always be the quarterback of the future until 10 years from now. Carson Wentz is a Philadelphia Eagle. He will be the franchise quarterback. He'll be the face of this franchise for a very long time.
They invested heavily in Carson Wentz. You don't make the significant moves they made to move up to get him without making a commitment to him. Not just an immediate commitment, but a long-term commitment as well. You have groomed him for 3 years now. The talent is obvious when he's healthy, and that's the key, when he's healthy. Well, we still have to see what he can do at that next level, meaning the playoffs. We don't know how he can handle the pressure of a playoff situation.
You're right about that.
The Eagles are lucky for one thing that nobody else can say. They've had a backup come off the bench now and write a Cinderella story of leading this team to its first ever Super Bowl championship, and again this year, leading this team back into the playoffs. So they have bought themselves some time now. But moving forward, you cannot continue to have this split identity with the quarterback and leaving us in the media sitting here every season talking about who should be the franchise quarterback. You've run the course with Nick Foles now. Give him his wings. Let him fly. If you can't get anything for him, let him go find his own team to see what he can do, and hopefully he doesn't come back and bite the Eagles down the road. But once Nick Foles is gone, and in all probability he's gone, this is when we're really going to find out what Carson Wentz is or isn't. We keep using the term franchise quarterback because he has all the intangibles to be that so-called franchise quarterback. He has excellent talent, skills across the board. But we have to see if he can take this team to that next level to equal what Nick Foles has done.
Absolutely, but the biggest thing, injuries. They're the biggest concern for Carson Wentz, especially this year in 2018. He missed the first 2 games due to a knee injury and the last 3 regular season games and 2 playoffs games with a back injury. Here's Doug Peterson today on how much the knee injury in particular impacted Carson Wentz's performance.
I go back to, the year 2017. Carson had a full offseason. He was healthy, and he was able to go through OTAs and gather that timing and rhythm and everything that led into the season and the MVP type season that he was having in 2017 before the injury. Obviously, fast forward to last offseason, he didn't have that. He didn't have that offseason with his teammates. He was rehabbing. He was going through that process. And when you miss that time, it will affect the overall big picture of things. And so I think what you saw this season, as the season progressed, got better and better and better, and his numbers got better, and the completion percentage got better. And so that time lost was what he had to make up during the season, which is extremely hard to do.
Here you see Wentz's numbers in 2018 compared to 2017 when he was the front runner for the MVP when he hurt his knee. Gunner, you were around Carson Wentz every day. How much did the knee back injury impact his performance this past season?
Now, we talked about this throughout the course of training camp and the first few games of the regular season before he actually came back. And when your legs are as much of a weapon as your arm and you're dragging around extra hardware, it has to affect your overall game. And more importantly, in his case, his mobility. His ability to scramble is a big part of his ability to sidestep pressure and get the ball down the field to the proper receiver. And, of course, when you don't have that mobility, it does affect you not just physically, but mentally as well, because sometimes frustration can and will set in and throw you off your game just a little bit. Same thing with the back issue. Once the back issue became a problem, I wonder how many times he stepped back to throw a pass, whether it was in a game or a practice, and you could feel that little sharp pain in your back. Or you decide you're trying to pivot and survey the situation, and you feel that little twinge in your back.
Yep.
Those little things take you off your game. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Those little things take you off your game mentally, which could be the difference between success and failure. So now we have to go through this process again. Will Carson be 100% in 2019, hopefully without the hardware on his knee? Will the back issue be a problem again coming up in 2019? And those are little things that Carson is going to have to deal with. A lot of times, Barrett, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the mental battles a lot of time in the game at this level is a lot more difficult to overcome sometimes than the physical battles.
No question, and a lot of people don't understand. It is 80% mental and 20% physical. You can train your body to do whatever you want to do. It's your mentally being able to do it that's the problem. And Carson, at this point, if you look at it, you talked about that knee brace being a hindrance to him all season, hurting his mobility. You're exactly right. But also mentally, the fact that guys falling around his legs and things of that nature kind of throw things off a little bit also. And then when you add the fact that Carson couldn't use the proper mechanics in his delivery of the football, really put things in perspective for me, because when I look back at 2017, the first 10 games, and looked at the 10 games he played this year, it's a total difference in his mechanics. The way he drove his hips through, he drove his knee through, the way he drove his arm through. All that stuff was different from when he was healthy, and look at him now. It was a total different mechanics that he had going into this season than what he had last season. And as he played and the injury to his back came too, now you're thinking about your knee, in which he wasn't even a year out of your knee injury, and now you added a back to it too. It just put him in a position where he couldn't be the same guy as he was 2 years ago. I think this offseason, where he's going to be, around the guys, be able to participate in these mini camps, in these training camps, I think he'll be a totally different guy. He'll go in with a better understanding of what it is. And not just that, he's going to go in and not just look at film of himself. I think he's going to really sit down and diagnose what Nick Foles did, especially in those tough games in which they needed plays to be made, and he made those plays. He's going to go back and diagnose what he needs to do to get better. All those things, he's a smart enough guy to understand that it's just not the physical aspect of his body that has to change to get better, but also the mental aspect of going out and being that quarterback that this team is, because he's not a team leader. You couldn't have both of those guys on the bench again, because as a starting quarterback and being that guy, you don't want to look over your shoulder and see a guy that's won a Super Bowl sitting back there waiting and ready to go out there and produce. And the team was ready for him to go out there and produce also. That's a big factor. So you got to make sure that he's out there going there and understanding that he is the guy as they go forward.
All right, one of the biggest challenges facing the Eagles all season long, playing the role of defending Super Bowl champions. It was a brand new experience for the vast majority of the organization. Let's go to Howie Roseman and Doug today on the challenges that the role presented and how they were able to handle it.
It's a quick turnaround. You know, I remember we got back Monday night from the Super Bowl and driving in Tuesday morning and just feeling like we're 6 weeks behind, and we got to get up to speed. And you think about how the calendar goes, and even at this time of year, you're just you're jumping to things, and you know, everything kind of happens quicker, so you don't have as much time to kind of take a step back, and you're rolling. But it's a great problem to have, and we're hoping to have the problem again going forward.
Looking back on it, you just gotta keep your foot on the gas. You gotta stay aggressive in your off season. You know, in your preparation. You know, there's things you look back on, and as coaches, you know, we like to go back and scheme about, go back and watch our schemes, offensively, defensively, and special teams, and you know, that was cut short, and you're kind of buzzing through some of that, and you know, I think there's different things that you can do moving forward. Having looked back on it now, moving forward, we want to be playing in January. We want to be playing for championships, and that's all part of the process.
Yeah, Barrett, it's another topic we talked about all season, but it's not easy being the defending champions for a variety of reasons. How do you think the Eagles handled that role?
Well, it's a tale of two seasons. You know, you look at their first 10 games, they were horrible. They were 4-6. But their last 6 games, they looked like the team that I thought they were going to be. They went out there and executed the way they were supposed to execute. This team has some really good talent on the team, very talented players, but they just weren't executing the way they were supposed to. And it was injuries for the most part. But the biggest thing that they didn't really understand and couldn't account for was how other teams were going to play them. They are the defending champs, so you're going to get everybody's A game. Everybody wants to get the defending champ and dethrone them. So because of that, you have to go out and play at a different level than most teams. You have to play at the top of your game for 16 games as opposed to other teams for other 31 teams trying to knock you off your pedestal. That's the hardest thing, the way people are going to play you as opposed to they play another guy in their division. This team were the defending champs, so because of that, you're going to get everybody's A game, and you have to make sure that you're ready to go out there and fight. Now, you do get a shorter time in which you can prepare for going out in an offseason, but that's an offseason you want, as opposed to having that 2 months and you're not in the playoffs.
This was a defending champion that lost significant pieces along the way. So when you're trying to combat everybody trying to knock you off that pedestal, and you're not going to battle with a full arsenal of weapons, it makes it even that much more difficult. I mean, look at times who they were counting on to fill in and play significant roles. Names like Gary, Bosby, Chance Sullivan, Trey Sullivan, so on and so forth. You weren't anticipating these guys, and then they were bringing guys off practice squad and off the street in the middle of the season to fill gaping holes in the defenses in particular. And, of course, they struggled. And it showed in the overall play. It was like a ragtag operation for a while on Sundays watching these guys play, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But then all of a sudden, after they simplified things, the kids stabilized. They became more of a cohesive unit. And they regrouped in just the right time to make that run to get to the playoffs and get to the second round of the playoffs. And as I asked Howie Roseman today, when you look at some of the pieces that you weren't counting on to help this team out, and in some cases pieces that came from out of nowhere to help this team out, how difficult or easy does it make your decision in terms of building a roster in 2019? And how he said, you know what? We didn't know if certain kids could play at this level. But now that we know they can play and play well, it helps us. So that tells me basically it helps them rethink. We may not have to spend as much money as we thought we would in free agency to get out there and to get some of these pieces that we need to make this a contending team again. Some of these young kids are really ready to take another significant role in 2019. And also, it might allow them to let some entities go that are free agents now because they feel they can succeed without them coming back on this roster and free up money they can do some other things with.
Absolutely. Yep. LeBlanc, you got, guys that they didn't think could play can now play now. So look, I envy those guys because, you got guys like Douglas came out and played. Guys can come out here and really make an impact on this team that you didn't think could. They're now stepped in a role of being a guy that could be out there and be a starter.